Juicing is quite popular, but is it actually beneficial? We're going to look at research specifically on juicing and depression, cognition, blood pressure, and we're going to look at specific juices for different things, including your physical or athletic ability, and not a juice that you're probably thinking I'm going to talk about on that. Let's look at it. Hey everybody, Chad Cruiser here with Health and Homestead. Let's start off with depression. Juicing and depression. Research in the journal Family Medicine and Community Health reported on the impact of juicing on both depression and anxiety. They divided people into 3 different groups. One group would have 350 grams of vegetable juice. The second group would have vegetable juice with added vitamins. Would that help out even more? And the third group would receive no juice at all. This is what they found. This is specifically in the group that took the vegetable juice without the vitamins. What they discovered is they went from a baseline Beck depression inventory level of 15.7, and by 12 weeks, or after 12 weeks, they dropped down to 9.7. That's a nearly 40% drop in their depression level. So this is actually quite incredible, and it says that those in the group that had juice without vitamins had the greatest drop in depression. The control group had a slight increase in their depression. Often people think it's so necessary to take vitamins, but certain vitamins can actually increase rates of cancer. So in general, getting your vitamins from food is a better way to go. There are times if you're actually deficient in something that you may need to supplement. But let's go even further. What about the Journal of Hypertension? Research reported in the journal Hypertension reveals that the single greatest predictor of death is having a systolic blood pressure of greater than 115. So systolic blood pressure is the top number in 120/80, so 120 is the systolic blood pressure in that example. And research on beets or beet juice, research in the journal Hypertension looked at the impact of beet juice on blood pressure. They conducted a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial, and they used standard beetroot juice, 250 milliliters. Beets are naturally high in something called nitrates, and it was compared to a placebo beetroot juice that was depleted of nitrates. Nitrates, through an interesting process, can help produce nitric oxide in the body that help dilate or expand the blood vessels. And both groups daily received the 250 milliliters of juice for 4 weeks, and it turned out that the standard beetroot juice that had the natural nitrates in it lowered their blood pressure by 7 to 8 points on average. They also found that the endothelial function was enhanced by approximately 20%, and the endothelium is that layer in the arteries that can expand or contract or dilate or contract based on what you're eating or what you're doing. They also had lowered arterial stiffness, and there were no serious adverse side effects in this study. Okay, so this is fantastic. So the question also would be then, well, what does this do to your cognition? Well, let's look at the research. An interesting study was conducted called The Effects of Beetroot Juice Supplementation on Cognitive Function, Aerobic and Anaerobic Performances of Trained Male Taekwondo Athletes. They had male Taekwondo athletes consume 400 milliliters or 800 milliliters of standard beetroot juice or a placebo without the nitrates. And it turned out that the beetroot juice seemed to have no impact on their Taekwondo abilities. But it was found that while taking a cognitive test known as the Stroop test, those who consumed 400 milliliters of beet juice had higher cognitive or mental function as a result of it. Now, this is quite incredible. And so this is a key point to remember. You might be someone who you think, okay, if 1 is good, 10 is better. Now, in this case, as in the case of many natural remedies, if 1 is good, 10 is not necessarily better. Actually, sometimes multiple can be actually detrimental. And in this case, 400 milliliters had a positive impact, evidently, on the cognition or the mind of these people. But when you doubled it to 800 milliliters, it did not have the same benefit. And so being moderate, even in a good thing, is beneficial. Now, what about athletic performance of beetroot juice? In one study, beetroot juice helped people ride 50 miles on a bicycle 0.8% faster. Some research shows 1 to 3% increase in athletic performance. For most people, that is inconsequential. But for serious athletes where races are won on tenths of a second, this may be significant. But I'm going to show you something that has a 15%, actually over 15% increased in your endurance ability because of a juice that's not beet juice, a juice you're not imagining. So we're going to get to that later in the video. Let's look at kale and cholesterol. Research in the journal Biomedical Environmental Sciences reported on the impact of kale juice consumption on people with high cholesterol. And people with a cholesterol of over 200 were given 150 milliliters of kale juice every day for 12 weeks. And it turned out that it increased their HDL, the so-called good cholesterol, by 27%. I want to let you know very quickly that research has actually shown that when they increased HDL in the studies of people by giving them drug medication, it actually had no benefit. So I have no idea if raising the good cholesterol with this particular kale juice does anything, but it goes on to say it also decreased their LDL cholesterol by 10%, and it lowered their atherogenic index by 24%. The study concluded by suggesting that consuming kale juice may lower the risk of coronary artery disease. It's probably true too if you ate kale in general, and I love cooked kale. It's something I really enjoy the flavor of. But a popular juice that is being used kind of all over the place right now is celery juice. Is there actually any research on it? Well, we have a case report of a 74-year-old male who had hypertension. He had tried medication, but the side effects were too much for him. So he tried celery juice daily for 6 months, and his blood pressure went from 150/80 to 118/82. But this is one individual. Do we have any better research? This is only a case report, and case reports are basically glorified anecdotes. Just because it works for one person doesn't mean it works for, multitudes of people. But the good news is they've actually done at least some research on this. And the Journal of Physics reports on celery juice and hypertension. They only had 24 people, but they state that celery juice had a statistically significant impact on lowering blood pressure in those who consumed it. So celery juice evidently does have a beneficial impact on blood pressure. The other thing about celery juice that's beneficial is that it's low in calories and also low in sugar, so you don't have to really worry about drinking celery juice. But now I want to talk about some potential dangers of juicing. So let's look at fruit juice in general, and at least 2 studies, one in the Journal of Cancer and the other in the British Medical Journal, have shown an association with consuming fruit juice and cancer, meaning fruit juice may increase your risk of cancer. I want to talk about that. This is epidemiology. They're just looking at people who are drinking it. This can't necessarily prove causation, but it may be, and it potentially makes sense because drinking in a lot of sugary beverages may spike blood sugar, and that potentially could be dangerous because cancer cells actually receive 2 kinds of fuel. One is glucose or sugar, the other one is ketones. Cancer cells also take in ketones. You may say, but Chad, aren't those the 2 main fuels of the body? Yes, which means cancer cells take the nutrition, or the fuel rather, that we would normally receive, and they take those up into cancer cells. That's one of the insidious things about cancer. So you might want to be careful with fruit juice in general, but you might be thinking, okay, so I should avoid fruit. Yeah, I should remember that. No, let's look at the research just very quickly, and then we'll get back to that study on a certain juice that can increase athletic ability by upwards of 15%. Study after study, including meta-analyses, have revealed that fruit consumption has been associated with lower rates of cancer. We see the same thing over and over and over. Actually eating fruit in its whole form, meaning you're eating an apple, not the apple juice. Fruit in general has been shown to actually lower your chances of coming down with cancer. But now let's talk about that other juice I mentioned. And grape juice. Research in the European Journal of Nutrition looked at the impact of grape juice on runners. They were to run at 80% of their VO2 max until they were exhausted. They would consume one-time grape juice at 10 milliliters per kilogram, or a placebo drink. It turned out that after taking the placebo, they ran for 59.2 minutes on average, and then were exhausted, and after drinking the grape juice, they ran for 68.4 minutes. That is a over 15.5% increase in athletic ability from drinking grape juice. Now remember, beetroot juice had an increase in one study of 0.8%, upwards to maybe 3%. Now this is not an apples to apples study because it wasn't the exact same kind of exercise, so we don't know, but this shows that this may significantly increase your ability to have endurance in some kind of activity like running. The grape juice also increased the total antioxidant capacity, called TAC, in the blood of the runners by 43.6%. And this is quite fascinating. Now, I want to give you a little side note. This is anecdotal, but something you could potentially try. My wife, when struggling with serious menstrual pain and sometimes even feel nauseous as a result of having the pain, what she has found, she tried all different kind of things, and the thing that made the greatest impact was during that time period, drinking grape juice. It really settled her stomach and made her feel significantly better. So it's anecdotal, but it's something that, you know, if you're in that situation, it's worth a try. If it works, great. If it doesn't, well, you tried something else. One of the things to consider is I wouldn't try to get all of my nutrition from juice, because the thing you're missing from juice is the fiber. And fiber is so beneficial by helping things move along, we could say that, instead of being constipated. And also the fiber that is in fruits and vegetables feeds the good bacteria that we have in our intestines. And so you don't want to just juice all the time. Eat many fruits, vegetables, whole grains, eat a variety of these things, and you will be feeding your bacteria in your gut, in the microbiome, and enhancing your health and your happiness. If you want to see some incredible research right here on cabbage juice and its effects on health, this is incredible. You don't want to miss that. And this one right here is on specifically dried fruit and its benefits to your health. You've never seen this unless you've seen this video. Check it out right here. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications. God bless and have a fantastic day.